Hello and welcome to the Photo Op Podcast, the podcast where we talk about all things photo and video. I'm your host, Ben Lucas.
And I'm Stuart Marlantis.
And this is Photo Op.
It is.
All right, so today we have a little dancing for you guys watching on YouTube. But today we have a very kind of fun piece of tech that we're just going to talk about it.
We're geeking out about stuff today.
We're geeking out about geeky stuff. So if you have watched Thor Love and Thunder, or subsequently, even though this is a much older film, Thor Ragnarok, ye be warned, spoilers ahead.
Not that many spoilers, though.
I know, but if you still haven't seen it and you're sensitive to it, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
We're talking about the movie today because there is an amazingly cool piece of camera tech that goes into filming one of the scenes that we're going to talk about. So, warning, turn around now. If you're still listening, you want to hear this. Excellent. Okay, so the part that we're talking about is, so in Thor Ragnarok, the part where Valkyrie is talking about her like background and her story, and there's that slow motion thing of her and all the other Valkyries fighting
the
Hela.
Ride of the Valkyries.
Ride of the Valkyries, thank you. And in Thor Love and Thunder, near the end of the movie, they are all on the moon, and there's this big fight sequence happening on the moon. So those are the scenes that we're talking about. And the thing that these scenes have in common is they have this very dynamic light that starts on one side and it swings around to the other side. And as the light is swinging around, they're still moving in slow motion and all the lighting is going all crazy. And so you might think, oh, it's CGI. No, it's not. It is not CGI. And then you might think like, okay, they just had like a super fast camera or something. No, well, yes, but also no, they didn't have like a super fast light just swinging around.
Somebody had to run with that light really fast.
No, so what they did, and all of this information comes from Satellite Labs. So Satellite Labs is the company that kind of made this rig, and they have some really cool tech going on. But essentially what they did was they lit it from every angle simultaneously. So if I'm fighting Stuart here with a sword, we slash our swords together, and we only have to do that once. And that one move got captured, but what they have is an entire array of all of these different lighting setups, 200 to be exact. They have 200 different lighting angles of that one motion that can then be composited together so they can choose which light they want, or they can add multiple lights together to get a 3 or 4 light setup.
So how does this 200 light setup work? It's got a big ring.
Yes, they made this ginormous ring that has 200 lights. They are shooting on a Phantom Flex at 1,000 frames per second.
The ultimate flex, you might say.
The ultimate flex. If you really want to flex on your coworkers, get a Phantom Flex. That should be their new slogan. So they're shooting at a Phantom Flex, and your first thought is, oh, they must be shooting 1080, right?
Yeah, I naively was like, oh, it's probably 1080 to get that kind of speed.
No, they're shooting 1,000 frames per second at 4K. They can go up to 2,500 and still get 1080.
I wish.
So anyway, they're shooting at and so the I did find a tech spec sheet, and this is actually specifically from the Thor Ragnarok version. So take that with a grain of salt.
It's probably improved a little bit.
It's probably improved a little bit. Tech specs might be slightly different. So even though we're talking about Thor Love and Thunder, because this is where it caught my attention, the tech spec sheet actually comes from Thor Ragnarok. Yeah. So disclaimer on that. So they have this giant ring, and what happens is basically there's a flash from light number 1, and that happens at 1,000th of a second. So then when the Phantom Flex goes to the next frame, the next flash goes off. So in 1 second, that ring cycles 5 times. And the video of this has been taken down. Otherwise, I would link it. But I have seen the behind the scenes video of this working. And basically what happens is it just looks like all the lights are on. Like they're pulsing a little bit, but it just looks like all of them are constantly on because that is how fast they are cycling. It is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, the human eye is only... I mean, it doesn't really work in frames per second, but it's generally like people think 300-ish at the top end.
And it essentially is just whoop, 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 and it's done. It is mind-boggling how fast this thing is going. Seriously, if you don't understand just how slow 1,000 frames per second is, just Google that and look at like bullet time and watch.
Look
some
up the
of
slow-mo
these
guys.
things. Oh yeah, that's
good channel for that.
A good channel for that.
And they helpfully include like exactly what frames per second they're shooting in and how they slowed it down and all that sort of stuff. So
yes, we're talking about this absolutely crazy tech today. So one of the interesting things is essentially they have this light that is circling around them. This light is moving at 8 times the speed of sound.
Yep. They said, what was it? It was like
10,000 feet per second.
Yeah. Wild.
This is absolutely insane.
What I think is extra cool about this rig is like multiple technologies had to come together and progress to get to this point where they could all be fused together. It's not like some new fancy camera. It's like, well, they just bought this camera and everything was done. It's like, no, we had to have LEDs. We had to have, sound stages where all this could be controlled.
Also incredibly high power LEDs.
Yeah, really high power LEDs. These are strobes, so it's not, that these are on all the time or, they're obviously, they need to illuminate this scene, but individually at a very high output. One
LED needs to. I'm looking at this light, and it looks like it's roughly 30 to 40 feet in the air, and it is also, go back to your middle school geometry class, Pythagorean theorem, all of that stuff. So it's not only up in the air, but farther away. So 50 feet away. And to put that in perspective, try lighting something from 50 feet away and you're lighting it at 24 frames per second. It needs, what's the calculation here? 5.5 times much light. I think I got that right.
So. Somewhere close to that.
Somewhere close to that.
Yeah.
5.25 times more light. I found it there.
Close enough.
Yeah. So over 5 times more light. So essentially what that means is and also to double the basically get more light, you have to double the output. So this is not a linear thing at all. So it's basically to the 5th power of. So to get if you had one light at 50 feet, then 5 times that much light would be 2 lights, 4 lights, 8 lights, 16 lights, 32 lights.
Wow.
So, and it's 0.25. So let's just say like 40 lights. So grab your fleet of 40 speed lights, set that up, and all of those are the power of what one of these LEDs are, and they have 200 of them.
Amazing. I'm surprised that the actors didn't like immediately melt when they were blasted by one of these.
I know, it's amazing. Okay, so
that had to happen. So LEDs had to get good. All of the rest of like the rigging and power delivery and computer
and
control,
the timing,
the computer control of all these LEDs had to get good. And then they had to have an insanely fast camera at very high resolution. Usually you have to sacrifice, right? Unless you're phantom flexing.
Oh, they did sacrifice. Well, because they could have shot at 2,500, and instead what they have is a special software algorithm that does some tweening frames to interpolate, because when you're shooting at that higher frame rate divided by 200, you're not actually shooting at very high of a frame rate.
In anything that like a consumer can remotely think about touching, you're like talking about in the like hundreds of pixels resolution, and they're like, oh yeah, casual 1000 FPS at 4K.
This is ridiculous. So the tech behind what they did, I'm gonna, for any of you watching the YouTube clip, I'm going to throw up some pictures that I took from my photo booth, triple click, because this is a very small consumer example. So I have a rig set up where I take 3 lighting setups from one thing, and it's technically not like a filter or anything like that. It is 3 individual photos, the same way that this is 200 individual photos. So 200 individual photos go by in a fifth of a second, which is like just enough that the actors move where they need to have this really ridiculously complicated like algorithm to be able to tween all the motion and make sure that they stack properly, but slow enough that essentially the actors have not moved at all.
Wow.
Even when they're going full speed swinging swords and axes at each other.
And how cool is that? Like, I think it's a shame that I think most people are going to just assume that this is CGI because, yeah, traditionally they would just
So you watch this fight. It's black and white on the moon with a giant like spider rock monster thing behind them. Yeah, a lot of that is CGI, but the actors are just cut out, lit, and put into a thing. They're not CGI. That's all real, and that's the incredible part.
And what's amazing is this works then with CGI too. So like if you're adding extra lighting or adding extra effects, you can then time your real lighting with those effects so that everything meshes nicely and looks correct.
Right.
It's amazing stuff.
So far we've geeked out about the hardware. Now let's take a minute and geek out about the software. Why does everything we just said matter at all in the least? Okay, so when you watch the clip, there are 2 different things. One, you'll notice that there's a scene where Thor and company, for anyone who hasn't seen it, spoiler alert, Thor and company walk into a tent. Okay, when they walk into a tent, it is one lighting setup. Just normal lighting setup. When they're kind of looking at the bad guy, it's one lighting setup. Now, they could have shot that individually under normal circumstances, or what they could have done is chosen one of these 1/200th frames and just used that one. So the crazy thing about this is you can not only move your light, and you can move it in post, and so you can get the exact arc and the exact timing how you want it, depending on the actor's motion. You can move that time forward or backwards in time, but you can also stack and layer these so that you can get a 3-light effect, a 4-light effect. You can have the light moving and multiple light sources, and you can choose all of that in post, and none of it is CGI.
Yep. And do cool day to night stuff too. So you can do more lights, brighter, less lights, darker. Yeah.
Just like absolutely insane.
And you could just choose. I mean, I'm sure it's more complicated than that in practice, but basically you can just choose. I want it to look like this, and you have a real in actual reality lighting to pull from.
Yes.
To make it look like that.
Yeah, it's not CGI.
It's not CGI.
You have 200 different frames of reference. Basically, you have... So that sword swing we talked about. You have from this degree angle and the next degree angle over and the next degree angle, and you have 200 of those in a complete circle. So you can get front lighting, side lighting, back lighting. You can get any kind of lighting. You can mix. You can power up, power down, make sure I just want a little hint of this one, and you stack all of those together, and then it turns into a single finished output. So the actor only has to do the motion once, and it's captured from 200 different directions lighting wise.
I feel like this is going to be like longer term. This is going to be like the why won't you just always shoot everything? If you're shooting on a soundstage, well, yeah, expensive. But like if you're a Hollywood studio, like imagine this technology is just slightly more sophisticated. So instead of 200 points of light, you're putting like a point of light in every foot square in like a soundstage in 360 degrees, right? Because right now it's just like a ring, And there have been like some smaller scale attempts where it's only like one person can fit in it and they can only really like, emote with their face. But, they're in like a sphere and there are a bunch of lights in that sphere of metal that are lighting them. So there's been smaller scale stuff. But as we're getting higher and higher power LEDs and better software and hardware control, what if you had a building where all the floor and the ceiling and all the walls, every foot or so, there was another point of light? You could grab from like thousands and thousands of points of light.
Which
I feel like it's an inevitability.
that doesn't even sound crazy because
No,
if you've seen
it's
the
not
way
that far away.
if you've seen the way the Mandalorian shot, a lot of the Mandalorian is shot in camera because they're on this stage that when the camera moves, the sound stage moves to correctly parallax that horizon line.
Yeah, well, and they're sort of shooting with thousands of points of light at least in the like live digital stages that they have where it's all this huge screen around them.
Yeah.
So that's not a green screen. I mean, it's virtual, but
it's virtual,
but it is an image that the actors are in that is shot.
It's an image the actors are in, giving realistic light, realistic. So you essentially what we're talking about is the difference is the camera tech is getting something in camera that when it gets handed to an editor, the editor doesn't have to go, great, I need to make all these models and 3D render something and figure out how specularity works versus on all the different materials. You're not having to do any of that because it's already got captured. You're just picking, I really like light number 17 and light number 296, and I'm going to stack those on top of each other.
Yeah, yeah. And why, like, what is extra cool, I think, is there's been a lot of criticism of shooting on a green screen. And some of it is warranted, fair. But it's kind of interesting that technology, like display and lighting technology, is progressing to the point where maybe it serves you incredibly much better as a film production crew to not shoot on a green screen, to shoot for real with real lighting, with at least with displays that are not green, that are showing an actual environment.
Yeah,
like it might actually serve you better than shooting on a green screen and just pasting something in digitally, which is wild to me that we're kind of moving back practically a little bit.
So I think I think everyone already knows about the Mandalorian like screen stage. That's been talked about countless times,
and it's amazing.
I have not seen anyone talk about this yet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So this tech is called plate lighting, and some of the videos that you'll see is you'll see a big kind of just like array of like 16 or so different lights in a single bank, and you'll see 5 or 6 of them set up. This is a ring where all of the lights are butt up right against each other. Yep. So it is the same tech, but much more sophisticated than at least any of the videos I've seen online talking about it.
Yeah, it doesn't look like, other than in this film, it doesn't really look like anybody's used that rig for anything else.
For reference, I'm getting all of this from a Phantom's website. I had to dig deep, and from Satellite Labs had basically the case study of this is how we did the thing. And so I'm pulling from a spec sheet PDF that I found from those sources, and because
they made the hardware.
Because I cannot find video evidence of this besides 1 or 2 1-minute clips.
But it's a legitimate source. I mean, it's from Phantom.
It's from the people who made it.
Yeah. It's amazing.
My God. Yeah. I'm geeking out so hard about the applications of this. One, because I already do this on such an incredibly small scale.
You did it first.
I mean, maybe. Depending on the timing of it.
Close.
I started in 2017. They probably started developing this a lot before that.
Your peers.
Anyway, I know. So part of it is kind of cool because this is something that I already do, just scaled up to the absolute insane extreme. But the other part of this that's cool of like, we have seen green screen tech where you can put anything behind them. We've seen Litro being able to change the field of focus. We have never really seen this before. being able to relight a scene. So I know last episode we talked about, my Google Pixel doing all this really cool thing in the camera. And one of the things that it can do is you can relight a person's face because like Google kind of knows the shape of a person's face. So you can click on a light source and it will correctly draw shadows to the nose on the other side, et cetera, et cetera. But that's just like algorithms and facial recognition and CGI. This is real.
Yeah.
Which is so cool to me.
Although, I don't know.
care if anyone listens to this episode. This episode is just so cool.
But is there a downslide? Like, are like light rigging people mad? Like,
I mean, I don't know. So I'm gonna say that, like, the major downside to this tech is rather than recording it once, have 200 times that in data that you have to choose and pull from. So there could be something to be said for, well, I got it right in camera and I got it the way I wanted it. But when you're doing this kind of fantastical action where you want to have that sun arcing through the sky to be able to get the incredibly like, you could set up all these like robots to make it move really, really fast, but what if your actor is like a hair off in when they swing their sword versus how the thing goes? You can time this precise in post, and it's just insane to me, and I think that's just so cool.
Yeah, it's hard for me to like jokingly say fix it in post because I'm not really sure you're fixing it in post. You're just choosing it in post.
Yeah.
It's been shot. You're not fixing anything. You're just choosing what shot you like.
And actually, no. I think that's the beautiful thing about it. So one of the projects that I did was I did a Star Wars themed pinup calendar because I'm geeky and nerdy and silly and love those kind of things. One of the things that I did was if any of you, I showed this to someone who is in their a Gen Zer, and they're like, "Who's the Coppertone baby?" And I just went, "Oh no, how do you not know this reference?" Anyway, one of the photos is I shot basically a recreation of the Coppertone baby advertisement, except using a stormtrooper in a swimsuit and in AT-AT. So to do this was not a fix it in post situation, but what I did was I shot the scale model AT-AT on a blue screen on the same set that I shot the Stormtrooper, and it wasn't so much a fix it in post as I am choosing this in post. And I did all of the shoot so that it would perfectly make my life easy in post. The lighting was correct. The cutout was easy. Every like the pulling on the back of the swim trunks was exactly how it was supposed to. None of that had to be liquefied or faked or anything. It was all set up exactly as intended. And I think this is not a fix it in post situation. This is more of that. They said, we have our vision and this is how we get there, to be able to shoot it and then in post pinpoint that accuracy and dial in the exact vision that we want. And I just think that is so cool. Good for you guys. This is amazing.
So Satellite Lab, if you'd like to sponsor,
actually, no. Phantom Flex, if you'd like to sponsor.
Yeah. I was gonna say for Triple Click, if Satellite Lab, if you'd like to provide one of these rings
that'd
for
be
Triple
dope.
Click, I'm sure Ben would be very excited.
I would take that sponsorship in a heartbeat. I've gotten some really random sponsorships that I'm like, I don't think you really know who our audience is, so I'm gonna say no. So currently, this show is sponsored by me, and you a little bit. Yeah. But basically, we're just doing this. So if you love this geeky, nerdy, fun camera stuff that we talk about every single week, make sure that you join us on Patreon. Patreon.com/nomcreative, the same channel that you might be watching this on YouTube. So there will be a link to that down in the description. But yeah, we're just so incredibly excited about this tech. It is just so cool. And when I saw it, I watched a little kind of like behind the scenes, and the behind the scenes vignette had like a 3-second just shot of this in the background. I'm like, I need to know more about this. And then I went down the rabbit hole and found this, and it's just so cool.
brag about it more. Why was it so difficult to find information about this?
I know, it's so cool. I'm sure if like I were to actually like get the Blu-ray or something, it'd be on like a featurette. But
maybe
on the internet so far, it has been a little lacking. So that is our episode for today. Like, subscribe, share, all of that normal good stuff. Be sure to send in your questions. How can they send in questions?
We have an email address, hello@photo-op.show.
Excellent. And we will see you next week with a fun and interesting episode, yet currently to be determined, because that's how life works. But thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for geeking out with us.
If you have questions or ideas for future episodes, you can email us at hello@photo-op.show.
Watch us on Ben's YouTube channel at NomCreative.
As in Om Nom Nom.
Share this with a friend, and you can listen to Photo Op anywhere podcasts are sold.
Or download it. 'Cause it's free.